Hello and welcome to a humble Highland home. Thank you so much for joining me here today. I hope everybody had a lovely Easter break. We had some friends come visit us and we also spent some time with family. But since Easter, it's been a very busy time for us with various things needing our attention away from the croft. So today is a catch-up day for me in the garden. I have more seeds to plant, which are mainly brassicas just now, and I also have seedlings waiting patiently to be pricked out, or as some people may know it as being potted up, and everything that is currently growing under cover needs a really good water. Whilst I'm catching up in the garden, I thought I would show you one of the areas that we both have been working on, which we were not expecting to have to work on just yet. This is the front garden of my old family home before Adam and I met, and it was home for just over 20 years, but now it's rented out to other families for them to make it their home to suit their needs. The last tenants have just moved out, so we're at mid-changeover, getting ready for the next tenants to move in. Now I can tell the last tenants were not gardeners, and given that it is not raining just now but it is very windy, I will be focusing on getting the gardens back in order. Gradually over time I will be simplifying the gardens so it isn't so much work to upkeep, and it will make the changeovers a little easier. This house, when I moved here, was only supposed to have been for a short while whilst my daughter was at high school, but life had other plans, so I made the most of it, and it did help that we're so close to several beautiful beaches and lots of places that I would gather wild foods. In the back garden, I grew a lot of food in here. I also experimented and I learned so many lessons. I also knew that I did not want to live here forever, so I always had that in mind when I was planning this garden. And I'm a great believer in always leave something better than what you found it. The first thing I'm doing in the front garden is to put the edge back in the border and build up a nice ridge so that when I add a layer of mulch on top of the soil, it doesn't spill all onto the grass. My method of weeding here has been and is the same as how I manage it at the croft. I haven't and don't use any chemical sprays, so it's good old-fashioned hand fork and pull out the weeds by hand. I know we have a lot of couch grass here, and it hasn't disappointed after not being kept top of for a couple of years. I could harvest these roots, but there is so much and time is of the essence just now. After the border has been weeded, the next job is to cut back the shrubs. Now I normally would have done this in autumn time, but the next best time is today. And once everything's been trimmed and shaped, I'm adding a thick layer of rotted wood chip mulch to keep the weeds down and to protect and nurture the soil. And I think it just tidies everything up and improves the overall look. I know that this soil is in pretty good condition. It's very sandy soil because we're so close to the beach, but year upon year I've added lots of compost and mulch. That's it all done, and I'm having a moment of appreciation before I move on. Next, I cleared all the weeds from down the side of the house and in the driveway before moving on to the back. The area that I'm weeding at the moment is where I used to have my greenhouse and my garden beds, along with my containers. I use the same styles of gardening at the croft as what I did here, just in completely different environments, conditions, and the soil structure is completely different. And that's why I continue to test and scale different dates for planting things at the croft, because it is so different to growing food here. Day 2 and I'm back in the garden, but at least now I've got a bit of sunshine to work in. This growing space needs the same attention as what the front needed. It needs a good weed, the edges being put back in, and a good cut back. This is a bay tree, so I'm picking some of the leaves for my daughter, and I've offered any of the clippings out to any of the friends and family that want them. This border was planted with privacy in mind, as I knew all the various shrubs would grow to a height to screen off my neighbours at the back and just to give us both a little bit of privacy. It's also a little example of an informal food forest where I had the bay tree at the back, and then I had rhubarb and chives in the front, and then I might plant in some salad leaves in between the plants and maybe some root vegetables at the same time. I remember filming my very first garden-based videos in this garden when I had my greenhouse, the garden beds and my swing seat. Now I'll leave the links to some of those videos in the description below, but I can remember it was always a challenge as the seagulls can be quite noisy, especially at certain times of the year. But it was my start into the world that now brings me so much fun and so many connections with like-minded people from across the world. I'm really pleased with the progress that we've made in both the front and the back gardens, and also the areas that generally get forgotten about, like the weeds down the side of the house, the ones in between the slabs, and the edging of the lawns. They all make such a difference when you're trying to tidy up a garden. All there is left to do now is to cut back and prune the shrubs on the left-hand side of the garden, but we'll need a chainsaw for that one. As a rule, I prefer to keep shrubs no higher than me so that I can keep them pruned, but sometimes they can get out of hand. Then the very last job will be to reseed the lawn, but that's it for the garden today. I'm now going to go and join Adam in the house where he's been fixing things and he's been starting the deep clean. So thank you so much for joining us here today. Take care of yourself and others, and I'll see you in the next video.